Before we get into the results, and I really do want to go through this. I've already talked to Shotgun Shan. I know you have not heard the show. It has not gone to air as we're recording this. But he had first crack at this pay-per-view. He's really an enthusiast. He's become a huge New Japan fan lately. So he really wanted first crack. But, I mean, I know that it's always good to hear from you and get your unique take on everything. You're unique. You're Sean Suke. You're the most unique, charismatic guy on the planet. But anyway, So he had first crack. You get second. You get sloppy seconds.
Well, I'm okay with that, and here I'll explain why, though.
Well, I know you're gonna have a lot of different opinions on.
Well, no, I'm not gonna say. Here, I'm gonna put out an honest disclaimer first. I haven't watched a lot of Japanese wrestling. I don't 100% understand the storylines.
Of course.
That they're doing. I've not seen any of them, so I need some help from you and from some of the others in the group to follow along, because I talked to you briefly and I said there was a couple of things I wasn't sure about or didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So, which kind of tilt my opinion a certain way.
Of course, yeah. And I mean, but that's interesting to hear that, because there are a lot of people that saw this show for the very first time without ever seeing any New Japan whatsoever. They were seeing it for the first time. The hype got to them, or maybe they just wanted to try. Hey, there's a 4-hour wrestling show live from Japan. Maybe I'll check this out. I don't really enjoy WWE right now. Let's see if something different. So there's a lot of casual fans that saw this show, and I think, including yourself, there's a lot of casual fans that are now big fans after seeing this show, and how could you not be? But before we get into the results, I got to say, if any show or any match, such as the last two matches, particularly the second to last match, which we will talk about, if anything competes with this in 2015, I know it's early, we're like a week into the year, if anything does, my God, this is going to be one hell of a year for the professional wrestling fans. No question about that. You got to pack a lunch to compete with that match or to compete with this show.
Totally.
So let's... But, there was a dark match on New Japan. I guess it's not dark now because everything's on New Japan World. Yuji Nagata won the New Japan Rumble. Yes, it's true. The great Kabuki, although Suzuki is great, and we'll talk about him, the great Kabuki did make a return in this New Japan Rumble, Sean. I know you haven't seen it. I don't even think I've actually seen it. He's like in his 60s, man.
I was just going to ask you, how old is Kabuki now?
Oh, man, yeah, I know he's 60-something. So he still did the nunchucks and everything, man.
Because I'm like, Kabuki goes back to Texas and the Carolinas and the territories in the South and that time frame.
And I mean, one of the most famous Japanese wrestlers of all time, the Great Muta, obviously a complete derivative, in the early days especially, of Kabuki. That was the whole inspiration for that gimmick. And wasn't he supposed to be like the son of Kabuki or something?
I think that's how they originally tried to sell him. Yeah.
Gary Hart was the manager of Muta, and he would say something about, he
would tie him into Kabuki almost every time.
So anyway, Kabuki did return, but Yuji Nagata won the New Japan Rumble. So, okay, that's kind of interesting. But the pay-per-view started with the IWGP Junior Tag Team Championship match. And yes, Sean, I will explain a few of these storylines to you and just a few of the way that things go. This was your first Wrestle Kingdom, correct?
Yes.
So I can sort of tell you the way that, I've seen quite a few of them now at this point, just from having New Japan World especially. So I can kind of tell you, comparisons to previous ones. But anyway, IWGP Junior Tag Team Championship match, Red Dragon, as Matt Stryker said, the global champions, the ROH and IWGP Junior Tag Champions versus the Young Bucks versus Forever Hooligans versus Time Splitters. Red Dragon retain in this match. Sean, we've had time to talk about this, me and Shotgun. I want to hear what you thought about it.
I really enjoyed this match and thought it was the right match to go first to set a pace for a show, for starters. Second of all, it probably made me as a casual fan comfortable because I knew 7 out of the 8 guys in the match because I've watched a bit of ROH and TNA and some of the other promotions. So I knew who most of those guys were, with the exception of Alex Shelley's partner in Time Splitters.
Right, yeah, and that's Kushida, and a former junior champion as well. He's a guy that's young, he's learning English. He actually comes to Canada a lot with Alex. They're like brothers, man. It's awesome. Like they obviously, he's really helped out Alex in Japan, and Alex gets him booked when he's not on the New Japan tours all over the world, including places here in Canada. So if you want to check out, if you ever see the name the Time Splitters, my God, if they're in your town, you want to check out this team.
Yes, you do.
As good as the Motor City Machine Guns were, I think the Time Splitters personally are a step above. I think Kushida brings more of a badass element. He's kind of got the kicks, and he's got sort of just a tougher look in general than Sabin, who's great as well. But yes, so this match was all action, and one move in particular that I think I need to reference before I pass it back to you was the Meltzer driver, which we have seen, but seeing as though this was Wrestle Kingdom, a special event, they had to put a little twist on it, didn't they? And I couldn't believe the flipping Meltzer driver. That
was a little bit nuts.
Yeah.
I didn't know how anybody got up after that.
Right, yeah, that could have been the finish, but again, I guess they wanted Red Dragon, and that's good, because as you saw, Sean, up and down this show, all kinds of involvement from other promotions. It's definitely a promotion that has almost an endless roster because of that, because of all the working relationships, all the people that they bring in. People from Dragon Gate, people from Noah, as we saw in Match 3, and we'll talk about that. People from ROH, obviously Global Force Wrestling, and whatever that will end up being. About some of these guys, for instance, Rocky Romero, he's actually one of the guys that's an OG of New Japan. He's actually been there since 2002.
That's crazy to think about that he's been doing tours there that long, but he's been in wrestling a long time.
For a foreigner, for people that are, don't know this, to be a foreigner and be over there for that long is like unheard of. Like not a lot of guys do it nowadays, especially. Back in the day, guys like Hanson and stuff would pretty much just make all their money there. Anyway, I really did. I liked this match, and I thought, man, this is a way to start a pay-per-view. Like, this is all action and definitely gets you going. Now, I see what you were saying to me privately about the next 2 matches being a bit of a taking the level down a bit. With that said, I don't know that you could ever tell me a pay-per-view that didn't have some match on there that was meant to bring the crowd down a little bit before you bring them up.
And I'm not here to complain about. We're talking about, I guess, was it the 6-man that was out? Yeah.
Yeah, Satoshi Kojima, Hiroshi Tenzan, who does need to retire, but I don't think embarrassed himself. Tomoyoki Hanma versus Jeff Jarrett, Bad Luck Fale, and Yujiro Takahashi. A 5-minute match, but my thing about it was a 5-minute match worked like a 5-minute match. It wasn't a 15-minute match crammed into a 5-minute match.
True.
It was like, for what it was fast and it was over. And just to give you the, for sure, I mean, it brought the energy down from the last match, no question. But to give you the storyline of why this match had to be on the show, Hanma, who got the pin, and as you'll notice from watching the show, and I'm sure you'll be rewatching it at some point,
yes.
Hanma hit the headbutt for the win on the Bullet Club member Yujiro Takahashi. Sorry.
Yes.
And the crowd went nuts. And I think to most people watching, they'd be like, "This is just kind of like you say, a quick throwaway 5-minute match. Why is it even on here?" But the crowd goes completely nuts. This is the beauty of New Japan and Gato's booking, really. The fact that even the undercard guy, now it's this guy, to give you a comparison, maybe would be like a Kofi Kingston, maybe. He's a guy that's an undercard guy, but the crowd likes. They like him. They respect his, athletic ability. And for whatever reason, even though he usually loses, they still like him. And this was the big win because he's been getting his ass kicked for a whole year by the Bullet Club. So this was like, yeah, it's a throwaway 6-man, but Hanma got the pin on one of the Bullet Club members. And the crowd, for some reason, that's a big deal to them. They don't ever think Hanma's going any further than this, but for that, it's like, oh, cool, Hanma got his win. So in 5 minutes, you were able to give the crowd something they wanted. Now, to the casual fan, I understand. You're probably like, yeah, like, why did that match even need to be on the show? You could have just given some of the other matches more time, right? That was kind of your thought?
Well, it's not even that. Yeah, you could have given that 5 minutes to something else, but then again, looking at the rest of the show, I don't know what you would have done with that extra 5 minutes.
Right. And I mean, better or worse, yes, these were the 2 worst matches on the show coming up in the next one, which I actually enjoyed the next match, the 4-man, especially because it was a lot of good familiarity for the American fans, right? It was Taka, it was Shelton, it was Lance Archer, it was Davey Boy Smith Jr., and so it was a lot of guys that the American fans already know, and we're kind of like, oh, cool, this is where they've been.
Yeah, exactly.
That old territory feeling, right? When you'd see a show, you were visiting your grandparents or something, and they happened to catch some weird show that was like their syndicated show of some weird promotion you didn't know about, and it's like, there's Iron Sheik. I didn't know he was in this promotion. Where's he been?
Well, exactly, and that's kind of what it was. All the American wrestlers who we haven't seen in a couple of years or haven't heard from, kind of were all thrown into that match. And
that was again another, I think, like a 5-6 minute match. So as much as it did bring the energy down for a little bit, it was like 15, both these matches with intros were 15 minutes. It's not like it ever went on long enough for you to really get bored by it.
Oh, no. That wasn't what I said to you at all. What
sure.
I was thinking, it was just, you had this really high energy moving match, and then you had,
yeah.
Yeah.
Just a couple matches.
Yeah.
Or just matches. But again, it's also that this is a Wrestle Kingdom tradition as well, like these multiple man matches from the standpoint of a lot of the WWE reasons why they do it too. It's about getting guys on the show. This is the biggest show of the year, and it's about, these guys have worked hard for us all year. Let's get them on the show somehow, some way. The Jeff Jarrett thing was a gratitude thing. He actually did not, from whatever anyone says, politic to get on this show as a wrestler. And as everyone saw, the Global Force pay-per-view was hardly the Jeff Jarrett show.
No.
He was on there for 5 minutes. He did his little part, and I thought he actually looked quite good doing it.
Yeah.
So anyway, a 5-minute match worked like a 5-minute match. Nothing great, nothing to write home about, but again, there was a lot more to come, so don't worry. Toriano Marufuji and Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste. Now those three, Marufuji, Shane Haste, and Mikey Nichols. Those are all guys from Noah. They have this development, deal going with Noah right now. They're going to be sending some of their young guys down there to get developed a bit, and they like to do that and send them on different places. Like, they used to send them to TNA when TNA was open to that whole thing, before they thought they were too big for that. And nowadays, I'm sure they would just die for a working relationship with New Japan. But
because it would mean money, which they need.
New Japan is obviously a bigger promotion than TNA. I would say it's a bigger promotion than TNA in the States after that pay-per-view. But anyway. This match, again, there's going to be more involvement between the Noah guys and the New Japan guys, and essentially Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste are going to be going into a feud with Davey Boy Smith and Lance Archer, the Killer Elite Squad. So that's just to sort of set the stage for them doing more matches. And again, fast match, Toriano, Marufuji I thought looked great. So again, no real complaints, but again, like you say, I can't disagree that it brought the energy down. For me, the show started cooking right now.
Oh, it did.
Minoru's, I gotta get your opinion. As soon as I watched this match, I was just like, what would Sean think of this match? Minoru Suzuki versus Kazushi Sakuraba, with Jim Ross giving the background of the Billy Robinson and the Carl Gotch, the fact that these guys are legitimately, proteges of those guys. And Minoru Suzuki, I said this to Shan on Vintage Update, but I'll say it to you as well, and I thought Jim Ross did a great job. Minoru Suzuki is one of the earliest mixed martial artists in the world. Yes. Like, one of the very first mixed martial arts promotions was Pancrase, and he was the co-founder of it. And obviously it got brought over here to the States, and UFC got a hold of it and all that stuff, and that's how, that's how MMA became what it did today. But it started in Japan, and he was one of the very first guys. Now, Sakuraba, everybody knows that name.
Yes.
Jim Ross is not exaggerating when he says the greatest, mixed martial artist of all time from Japan. He's not exaggerating. This guy has beaten 5 of the Gracies, including Hoist Gracie, in his prime. So, Sakuraba, a MMA legend and a Japanese wrestling legend, because he's always been involved, and so has Suzuki. It's the weird crossover, eh, Sean?
It's the weird crossover that for some reason doesn't seem to work the same in North America, and I wish it did. Especially after watching that particular match with what they called the
UWFI rules, yeah.
Yes.
So again, this match, I was thinking of you. I know you like it pure. You know, as much as you enjoy a good storyline, you're kind of a bit of a purist. And for this, you know, it's also the beauty of Japanese wrestling that when you're kind of old like Sakuraba, Suzuki's in great shape. So Sakuraba's a broken man, and he was limping to the ring. Yeah. But Japanese wrestling finds a way that you can still have an exciting match without taking a single bump. And if you watch this match, no bump. No bump from Sakuraba whatsoever.
None.
But still exciting. And there were people that watched the John Jones, Daniel Cormier pay-per-view earlier in the night, and they were saying that the best fight of the night was Minoru Suzuki versus Kazuki Sakuraba, which was a worked shoot. But they put the shoot in worked shoot.
Did they ever? I was convinced.
How great was Jim Ross, John?
Jim Ross made this awesome fight better. I could talk about Jim Ross. I'm sure at some point later on we will talk about.
Yeah, we'll do a whole thing on the commentary. We'll do a whole thing on the commentary after we're done the card here. That's a good idea. Yeah, I loved the John Wayne reference at the end with Suzuki. Yeah. But anyway, for anyone that didn't see the match, essentially what happened, they traded some brutal strikes at the end. Sakuraba, I felt bad for him at the end when he got that big slap and his face just welted up with it. Yeah.
Well, at one point I was convinced that Suzuki that his arm or his wrist was broken.
Great. I mean, those kicks. It easily could have been.
But then I started to realize, oh wait, this is a work, because I'm watching Sakuraba essentially never go near his wrist again for the entire fight, and then start kicking his forearm and his elbow.
But a great story, and
God.
Again, you're not going to see anything like this done like this in WWE, especially, but in the States, I'd say in general.
No.
This was a fight, and like you say, I mean, it blurred the lines. It blurred the lines of, is he actually, does he have a broken arm? Those kicks were hard enough to break his arm, so did he actually break his arm? And that's going to be an ongoing theme of this pay-per-view, the realism, the attention to detail, and the actual physicality that makes you think to yourself, well, it's not really a stretch to think that he just got a concussion. It's not really a stretch to think that he just got an orbital bone broken or something like that, or he just broke his arm. So, so we'll keep moving with the pay-per-view, and then again, we'll sort of get into the final thoughts, and we'll talk about the commentary and stuff, because again, I think that's a whole other conversation. But the next match, definitely a throwback kind of a match, man. Wow. Never open weight championship. Tomohiro Ishii versus Togi Makabe. Two mean, ugly, grizzled, what are the words? Stiff, snug. It wasn't pretty, but my God, was it entertaining, and they had a hell of a match. Tomohiro Ishii is really a very popular guy. Recently, he's kind of one of those late bloomers, man. He's 39, and he'd spent a lot of time kind of being in the indies and not really getting the breaks. And just sort of over the last few years, he's become, essentially his gimmick is he's Homer Simpson.
Yes.
He's got the head made of concrete.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you do, somehow he will get up. But one way or another, Togi Makabe was able to come and... how much of a throwback is Togi Makabe, Sean? I mean,
it was like watching something out of the 1980s. It was awesome.
It was, yeah, you're right. It's WWE, and I know Gato is a huge fan of WWF, the 80s. He really grew up on that too, and a lot of his booking and a lot of the characters and everything, you can really draw the parallels to some of the great characters of WWF era. But he just looks like a Neanderthal.
He does.
And again, just a brutal match. Lots of kicks, lots of slaps, lots of chops, lots of punches, lots of fucking forearms. My God. My favorite was the standing lariat offs.
Oh, that's right.
And the sound is like this. And then you see the final lariat from Togi Makabe, and it was like there was no selling about the way that Ishii fell.
He was hurt.
Like, he did not fall in a bump. He did not fall in a cell. He fell however he fell. Because, my God, he got his head taken off. And I figured watching this, you'd probably enjoy this just because you're kind of a bit of a sadist for just a mashup kind of mean guy.
Right.
There was a Bruiser Brody element, definitely, to everything that Togi Makabe does. It's funny that he actually comes down to Bruiser Brody, like a remake of his music, the Led Zeppelin, I think, right?
Yeah.
And the Immigrant Song, yeah, and I think Jim Ross even referenced that as well.
He absolutely did.
But again, I thought you could tell Jim was enjoying it. This was, Bill Watts would have enjoyed this match.
That thing was so stiff.
Oh, there was no, yeah. So anyway, I enjoyed that one as well.
So much fun.
So much fun. And again, you look at the two guys, and you kind of picture what the parallel would be in WWE of who would be those guys, and you just think that would suck. But for some reason, just this worked, man. And I've seen a lot of Ishii's matches, and they're always like this. They're always just complete brawls. And Togi Makabe as well, who, believe it or not, is actually a sweets. Sweets as in cakes, cupcakes, any kind of sugary dessert. Togi Makabe is a huge enthusiast for. I have him on Twitter. I think I have him on Facebook. Everything he shares of him is him like visiting sweets shops. Him like sucking on a lollipop, or him like as I say, a Neanderthal.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of the first human beings to ever walk the planet, like in terms of the evolution from monkey to man.
Yeah.
This is one of the like, he could actually be in Planet of the Apes. No joke, like without any makeup.
And then you see him in like a bakery.
He's in a bakery. He's like got the little sugar on his mouth. Like he's something else, man. And he's got this. This is another old school thing about him. He's got that whole Crusher voice.
Oh no.
He's got the crazy raspy, crazy grizzled voice. But anyway, moving along. And again, this show moved along.
It did.
No bullshit.
No, very few. I think there were 2 videos.
Yeah. There were 2 video packages. There was the one little thing in the middle that was like running down every single show that they're doing for the rest of the year.
Yes.
And
then there was one for the title match at the end.
My God, the gardens, the greenery at some of these arenas.
I know.
What the fuck? I'm watching this. I'm just like, my God, I could go there for like a nature walk with my girlfriend and then watch wrestling. Like, wow. But very cool.
Yeah. Very odd that you do that with your wife.
But I think this is where they ran down like the whole long thing of all of them, But I thought that made them look really big league. Now, you could have probably done that, as you notice, and maybe we should save this for the end too, but Jarrett really didn't spend any extra money on changing the visual presentation of the show at all. He just worried about the audio.
Nope.
And there was something kind of charming about it, and there's obviously room for improvement, but we'll talk about that again in our sort of final review. IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. I think a lot of people have heard this guy's name for a long time. Kenny Omega. He's from Winnipeg. Same as Chris Jericho. Kind of has a voice like Chris Jericho. Versus Ryosuke Taguchi. I've kind of said on other shows, Sean, mostly with Shan, that like Taguchi's great and all. He kind of reminds me of Eddie Guerrero, but he's just getting a little old. He's Prince Devitt's old partner, and he was quite a bit older than Devitt, I think. But he's just kind of like he's gotten a little slower, and he's just not really cut out to be the junior champion anymore. That needs to be a young guy's fast-paced type of matches, and he's just not that wrestler. So I'm very happy that they've moved on, and Kenny Omega, your first time seeing him, this whole apocalyptic Mad Max gimmick. I don't know if your first time seeing him, but definitely on pay-per-view. What was your thoughts of the junior championship match?
I thought that match was done so well, and they told the story the exact way that you're supposed to, and because Kenny Omega, this is the one time I picked up, okay, Kenny Omega is Bullet Club, and the Bucks were out with him, and all this, and that was, they did everything to show you that Taguchi was loved by the fans, how much they hate Omega, and you can see, even in the commentary, you heard them reference Omega, kind of many people of Brian Pillman, and it eerily looked that way.
The hair, definitely. My brother was so offended by his hair. He couldn't stop talking about the hair. He's just like, I'm like, what about the match? Well, yeah, the match was great, but that hair, oh God. He said it looked like a seagull took a dump on his black, dye job, but but you're right. I mean, the whole story's been going for a year with the Bullet Club now, just being, and Matt Stryker and Ross said it. I mean, they are sort of integrating the Western tactics, and the fans don't like that. They don't like this interference stuff. They don't like the fact that, it's not straight up competition that they have to bring people to ringside. So like you say, like again, for somebody that hasn't seen a whole lot of what's been going on, but just kind of heard about it, it made complete sense. You're like, okay, yeah, these guys are kind of, they're not playing the way that the fans would respect. And so that's why they're doing so much cheating and the fans are kind of against them and they want Taguchi to win. He is beloved. Yeah. And, he's been there for ages as well, but, yeah, really cool match, and I got to get your take on the one-winged eagle. I think that was the name of the finish.
That was just, I can't even describe it. That was just something to see, and I'll go back and watch it 2 or 3 more times just to truly dissect it.
Yeah,
but it was awesome.
Just to kind of give people the visual, it's like essentially an electric chair drop, is it? But yes. bringing him forward into like a frontward powerbomb pile driver type thing into a
almost
pin.
Like the Michinoku driver.
Yeah, that's perfect way of describing it. It's like the Michinoku driver, but starting from the electric chair
position.
Meaning, like, with your girlfriend when she takes her top off at like the, I don't know, like the AC/DC concert, and you put her up on her shoulders, that position, but then bringing her forward into a Michinoku driver and pinning her. That's
nice analogy, boss.
Pretty serious. The next match, again, kind of like one's not as bad. I mean, this was definitely better than the second and third match. But, I mean, again, kind of the point of bringing the crowd down a little bit before these last 3 matches. But, again, I thought this was, I don't know how long it was. Maybe I think it was about 10 minutes or so, the tag team match. But I thought it was perfectly fine and actually a pretty damn good match.
I really enjoyed that match.
Katsuyori Shibata and Haruki Goto versus Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows. Obviously, we've seen Doc Gallows for years in WWE. Carl Anderson is a guy that's been over there now for bordering a decade as well.
But was in ROH at different points last year, too.
Right, yeah, he definitely came for in May and everything, and was a pretty big part of that show and everything. He's really talented on the mic. He's really talented in the ring, and I don't think Doc Gallows, embarrassed himself at all in this match.
No.
Shibata and Goto are a great team, very stiff and a great look. What was your first take of seeing Shibata and Goto? Some of those kicks from Shibata, just scary.
Some of those kicks literally look like I swear I heard bones break. Just listening to it, and you're just like, ugh.
Yeah.
There were a lot of points during the night I'm watching it, and I just cringed.
Beautiful audio. Absolutely gorgeous acoustics that they were able to capture in this Tokyo Dome. And again, it's a dome, and that's not easy to mic.
That's a baseball stadium. That's the 60,000 seat baseball stadium. That's
so we'll talk a bit about the production, and I'm going to get your take on sort of the look of the show and everything at the end of the show. But AJ Styles, that we said, I mean, these last 3 matches, man, this is going to be basically take 6 of the best in the world and say whoever has the best match is going to be the guy that has the best match. That was kind of the whole philosophy it seemed for these last 3 matches. They just said, you guys go, whoever has the best match is the best match. If it's not the last match, then so be it. Turns out all 3 were great.
All 3 were awesome, and I hate to say this because the AJ Styles was an awesome match. It was probably, and this is no downplay to the AJ match, it's probably the worst of the 3, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, if you got to rate them, that's right, and that feels so wrong to say.
Totally.
AJ looked great. Tetsuya Naito, I mean, a lot of people opened their eyes to see, how good he is. He's a guy that won the G1 last year, or not 2014, but 2013, he won the G1, and he was actually unsuccessful in capturing the title at Wrestle Kingdom last year. Yep. So he has not yet won the big one. They really played that up in the thing that he's never won the big one at Wrestle Kingdom. And will he win tonight? And it turns out he doesn't. But what do you think of the way that they put over the Styles Clash after what's happened with the broken necks, and they flat out referenced it? You were okay with this, like just from being a wrestling fan for so long, kind of using this reality and storyline, or what?
Yeah, and that's fine to me if that's what happened, and if you can use it to bring heat and it's legitimate, then fine.
To that move, as soon as he gets him in the position, even if he doesn't hit it, if he gets him in the position, the crowd,
that gasp.
That, like, we're actually scared. We're scared that this is going to be the end of Naito. He's going to get his neck broken, like Yoshi.
Yeah. And they teased it and teased it and teased it.
They milked it. They milked it.
God.
A great story. The announcers did a great job really putting that whole story over. And I guess, Naito is right up there with the top workers in the company as well. And AJ is as good as anybody really right now. Definitely the best North American wrestler, I'd say, right now. With Brian kind of being out too and hasn't really got back in the swing of things, I'd say AJ's just the man of North America, the king. But yeah, this match, the finish, man, God, like you go for the Hurricane Rana from Naito, and AJ doesn't go down with the Hurricane Rana. He's standing on the second rope, and he's kind of trying to put Naito in the position to give him a style.
And you could see it, and you're like, no, they're not.
And you could see the terror in Naito's face.
Yeah.
And he starts flipping out, and he's grabbing the ropes, and he's saying, he put up a great struggle, and he really put it over that this could be the end of my life.
Yeah.
I've got to get out of this fucking move. And then sure enough, AJ, like a pro, waits for him to freak out, waits for him to tire himself out, puts him in position. Perfectly executed Styles Clash. And I have to feel like part of that was to silence the critics that are saying he shouldn't do that move anymore.
Yeah. Because Naito still walked out of that ring, so...
They did that perfectly. And
yeah.
I just have the feeling, too, that Naito was probably like, let's show these people that this move's perfectly fine. You just have to know how to take it. I can even take it from the second rope. It's one of those things, I think.
Yeah,
I think it was a pride thing.
It was very much... all the pundits.
What a finish, though. My God. And again, that could have been a main event of any pay-per-view, and you would have been like, wow, what a great main event. No, the show still has 2 more matches, and the next match...
Oh... This was fun.
Give me your take on the intro of Shinsuke Nakamura and just that whole, like Matt Stryker said, the pageantry of that intro. And is this guy the most charismatic wrestler in the business right this moment?
I would say yes. I totally agree. Watching the big intro and everything else, and it was the first guy that night that had any kind of big intro like his.
Yeah,
and then to hear Jim Ross talk about him. Oh, he loves Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson. That's where all this comes from. Like, okay, now this all starts to make sense.
Before he even gets to the ring, though, he says he's a Michael Jackson enthusiast, he's a Freddie Mercury enthusiast, whatever, but he's also the king of strong style. That's his nickname because he's a badass. And then by the time he even gets to the ring, if you've never seen him, you're already like, oh, this is kind of an interesting character. So he's not a comedy guy. He's going to come in here and be a badass, but he's got this presentation. Yeah. Just such a complex character, such a charismatic character, and as an in-ring performer, as we saw, I think that these two guys, man, again, if anybody is going to compete with this match, if anyone's going to compete with these two for the best wrestlers of the year, this is going to be one hell of a year, because I just don't see that. I don't even know if that's possible, actually, no. Because anyone that says that maybe this was a 4.5, maybe a 5, they don't know if they can call it a 5. What would you not calling it a 5 means that there's something that you could have improved. I can't think of anything that they could have improved in this match.
No. Not a single thing, because they went back and they did everything that an old school fan like you and I would want. They did everything that a newer fan would want. They did everything that the casual fan, you're engaging the casual fan by having them do something different.
You're right, man. And even just the visual of it. You can tell by the moment you look at them, and I know that you're very much a proponent of this, of, the dynamic visually of a babyface and a heel. And you just look at them, and here's Kota Ibushi, all in white, this really gorgeous white gear, like really high budget gear.
Yep.
Really handsome young guy.
Yep.
Even though he's only 2 years younger, but JR had to put over this young kid. But he looks like a young kid.
He does. He's a very baby. Literally the term baby face.
Baby face. He is a baby face, Sean. Yes. And great physique, and has that youthful energy to the way he wrestles. Like, he doesn't care.
No.
But anyways, I mean, my God, the dynamic of just these two visually, the dynamic of them in the ring, the two mixture of styles, Kota's ability to not only fly, but his ability to brawl. You don't see that from a lot of flyers. And this guy can brawl as good as anybody.
Yeah. And that's what made it even more convincing as you're watching it.
Now, you must have damn near fallen out of your chair when that German from the top happened.
I was like, oh my God, how are they another one of those, and you're going to get up?
Right, really? This isn't the finish.
This isn't the end?
And again, I thought JR did a great job putting it over, but I'll just tell people what the story is that these two fought one time only before, and it was at the G1 of 2013, and what happened was Kota Ibushi went into that whole tournament as a junior. Now, in Japan, as much as they respect the juniors and everything, they don't really put them in the G1 and expect them to do particularly well. They're usually guys that get their asses pretty much handed to them by the bigger guys. And this was kind of a career-making match in 2013 with Nakamura, who's like second from the top in the entire company. And he had this match where he really hung with them. And it could have gone either way. So it was like one of those losing, he lost, but he became a much bigger star in that match. And this was the big rematch years later because Ibushi had the concussion issues. And Nakamura's finish is the Bomaye knee strike, which looks like it gives you a concussion every time.
Yeah.
So by the time the match guys were getting their gear off, Matt Striker and JR had put over the fact that, Ibushi has, he had the one match with them. He came really close, didn't quite happen. He's had concussion issues. Now he wants to get the revenge and get the win back. But if he gets the Bomaye knee strike, it could be the end of his career. Great story right there.
Yes.
So again, how do you really explain this match other than to say if you don't see it, you will never believe it. You will never believe anything we're saying. You have to order it.
He took how many Bomaye? I want to say 3.
Oh my God, the one that when Kota was starting to steal all of Nakamura's shit, and he gave Nakamura the running knee.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that if he was on the highway, he would have been given a speeding ticket for that.
Yes.
He was going 160 miles an hour. This guy just leveled Nakamura, and just the part of Kota getting his ass kicked and getting kicked in the face over and over, and then eventually snapping and smiling and just saying, I'm not taking this shit anymore. And then he fires up on him. And then he gets the revenge and he has Nakamura down. And he starts, when he's looking straight ahead with the blank stare and he's just giving the kicks to the face. And then Nakamura's got the boot marks all over his head. A match I don't think you and I will ever forget. That's for sure.
No, but you did say something about if there's ever going to be a match better than that one, it's going to take a lot. But the main event, if it didn't surpass it, came awful close.
Yeah, again, I would have to say Ibushi Nakamura was the best match of the night, but how do you even compare? You have all different styles on this show, up and down. You don't have any two matches that seem the same. It's a bunch of different styles, and to even compare them is to compare apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Because IWGP Heavyweight Championship match, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Kazuki Okada, this to me felt more like just a big-time world title
fight.
It could have been any era almost. Some of the moves, no, you wouldn't have seen in other eras, but it could have been Madison Square Garden with Bruno Sammartino. It could have been Pontiac Silverdome with Hulk Hogan. It could have been Dallas with the Von Erichs and Fritz Von Erich in a big match at Dallas Stadium.
Yeah.
It really could have been any of these things. And just to see it with my own eyes, to see this pay-per-view with my own eyes was to believe it, because you didn't think anything could possibly top that match with Nakamura, and I don't know that anything did. But again, it came very close, and it definitely followed it.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I came away from that match just being like, I miss wrestling.
Exactly. And both of those guys are just such stars, and the background on this being that Tanahashi's been the man since about 2006, and he's been there and he's done that, and he's been given the spot as top guy. Okada is the Bryan Danielson. He is the CM Punk. He's been given the shot. He's been champion for a while. He's had his time to be champ, but it's never been as the guy. And this is like, okay, Tanahashi's getting broken down. It's time for him to step aside, much like where we are with WWE right now. When's John Cena stepping aside? Who's going to take that spot? And we still don't really absolutely know, and we can talk about that quickly before we get out of here too.
Yeah.
Where are things going with the Rumble, and what's going on with Bryan, what's going on with Reigns. But this was that big time match. This was Shawn versus Brett, and I think I tweeted that from our Warzone 2008. Follow us at Warzone 2008. This was the modern day Brett versus Shawn in terms of two craft masters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was. And just the way they put the match together. You know me. I talked about this a lot. The way matches are put together and the way matches are supposed to look. They built this match.
Yeah.
I couldn't say any more perfectly.
Very American style. Very much like all of the big Japanese heavyweight championship matches too. It's like it's got that part in the middle where they build and it's slow and you're kind of sitting there thinking, man, they better start doing something. And then before you know it, you're already so invested that you're just popping for all the false finishes.
Well, what I liked about it is you had the younger guy, with the names.
Okada, yeah, Kazuki Okada.
You had Okada take the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Took through everything, and he's dominated the entire match, was toying with him at different points.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, too, a little background that will make you pop huge. Okada, and this really goes to show, and JR, they did a great job, and we're going to spend a bit of time talking about commentary, but they did miss certain things, and one thing that they missed that was really important was the fact that Okada's finish, the Rainmaker, which is like what Wade Barrett stole, basically. He kind of has his own version, but that's like a total rip-off of Okada's finish, which he's been doing for a while now, for years now, called the Rainmaker. And it's essentially like he grabs you from behind and then short-arm lariat, but it's like the craziest lariat you've ever seen. He's actually hit that for 3 years, and no one has ever kicked out once. People have reversed it. People have ducked it.
But nobody's kicked out of it.
Anytime anyone got hit with it, it was the end. It was 1, 2, 3. So this was the first time in 3 years where Tanahashi kicked out of the Rainmaker. And, they didn't catch that. Whatever, that's okay. It's the intricacies. I can look past all that because it was such a great show, great commentary. But you're right. I mean, this was a lot more of an American-style match than anything else on the card. A lot more familiar to us and our kind of style of what a classic match looks like. And I mean, yeah, it could have been Flair Steamboat. It could have been any of the greatest matches of all time, really. And Tanahashi's out of his mind with that dive, by the way.
Yes.
Out of his mind with his back and his neck to take that dive over the railing onto that uneven ground, too. There's like that dip down. The orchestra.
Yeah, I didn't I watched that. I'm going, if he misses by like an inch.
It's over. And if Okada wasn't able to catch him, luckily Okada did and is a total pro. And let's talk about that because one of the greatest things of this entire match, and just to show you the intricacies, and this is, again, I can't tell you if this was real or fake. I can't tell you if this was a work or if this guy can cry on command. But I'll tell you what, after he lost the match and he's walking down the aisle, in the most beautiful cinematography ever, they catch Okada with tears coming out of his eyes, walking down the aisle. He's crying. And Gato, now that's the booker, everybody, too. I don't know if you even know that, Sean.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Okada's manager with the gangster-looking guy with the bandana on over his eyes.
That was Gato.
That's Gato, and of course you remember Jotto and Gato from ECW.
Yes.
But Gato is the booker, and Jotto is the assistant booker, but I mean, Gato's the mastermind. So that crazy little short-looking gangster dude is actually like one of the great minds in wrestling. But anyways, the way that he looked at Okada, he looked at him like they were hanging out, and he got a phone call that a family member died, and he kind of looked at him like, I don't even know what to say, I'm so sorry. Absolutely amazing drama. And Okada putting so much of himself into, challenging, Tanahashi. He wants to be the man. Just put so much of his heart and soul, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, he was not successful. So it's like, was that real? Can he cry on command? I'll tell you one thing. This might blow your mind. They had another show the next night, which was like the Raw, basically is like the Raw after Mania. And it's always their big show. So that was live on New Japan World. I did watch that as well. But Okada came down to the ring. And he still had, on the way down to the ring, he was still crying.
Oh my gosh.
He still had tears in his eyes. And it's kind of interesting what they did because he teamed up with Toru Yano, who was like in the third match there with the guy with the DVD.
Yes.
And Toru Yano's like the most comedy guy in all of their faction. And they had a match against Bad Luck Fale and I think it was Tama Tonga. And Bad Luck Fale gave the powerbomb to Okada and pinned Okada. So they're telling some kind of story of Okada really taking this loss hard. And he just looked defeated coming down to the ring with Toru Yano, just like, I can't believe that it's the next night, and here I am in this shit-ass tag match, and I'm not the champion. This is fucked, He looked devastated. But again, the drama to end this show, Jim Ross, as much as he probably marked out maybe even more for the match before, he really made sure to put this over as the match, don't you think?
He did.
This was the match where Jim Ross was absolutely at his apex, I'd say.
Oh, completely, 100%. I thought he was going to come out of his skin at different points. He was just so excited and so happy to be there.
Were you kind of having that whole, even the look of the show and everything at times felt like an old WCW Dome show.
It totally did.
And to hear his voice over it, did it fuck you up a few times? Like, were you kind of
I had that,
whoa.
Wait, what am I watching?
Yeah,
what year is this?
Exactly. What year is this? Here's the real question. How old am I?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, that's like the most interesting thing. Now let's just spend some time talking about the commentary. People had been hard on Matt Stryker before the show. People thought he was the wrong choice. I was one of those people that just didn't think he was the right choice. I thought he did a phenomenal job. I don't know what you thought. I have not talked to you about this off air for the first time. Why don't you give people your thoughts on the commentary? And Jim Ross we've put over, but Matt Stryker, man, what'd you think?
Matt Stryker did an awesome job. Clearly did his homework. Clearly has spent a little bit of time in Japan. Talked about being there a couple of times.
Yeah. He was in Noah, so he really was actually pretty useful for that third match.
But I think anybody could be a good announcer if you do your homework and study, and that's a credit to Matt Stryker, who took the time to be prepared for that show.
I really liked, and I don't know if this really dawned on you, but for me it was a big thing. For once, for one show, in every single way, we were not being treated like an idiot. There was nothing on that show that was like insulting your intelligence.
No.
The way that the commentary mentioned everybody. They mentioned WWE. They mentioned guys under contract there. They mentioned Devitt and said that he's now Finn Balor in WWE. They mentioned Ring of Honor. They talked about Lucha Underground. Nothing was off limits. They talked about podcasts that are like the MLW podcasts and stuff like that. Everything, it was anything that, if you're a wrestling fan, you know what they're talking about. So why do we have to insult you? We don't have to tell you that, put this little isolated universe where you don't know anything outside of this company. You guys know.
Yeah, don't insult your fan base. That was one of the things that came across through the entire show, and I thought that was genius. But the other thing is, you also had the challenge, whether it was Matt Stryker or Jim Ross, trying to educate the fans on what some of the stories were.
Absolutely.
So to do both of those things successfully, kudos to Matt Stryker for being able to carry a lot of that.
Now it's time for me to tell you my story. Okay. Because we still have a few minutes left here. And how did I watch Wrestle Kingdom now? I know how you did. You taped the live version, right? You taped it and then watched it the next day night. Or next night. Okay.
I watched it the next night.
So you just taped the live version and watched it the next night. I'll tell you how I watched it. I watched it live. I stayed up until 2. I was explaining this to the same late 60s, early 70s-year-old wife of a client of mine today, that I went to bed with my wife at 11. I didn't mention a word about this wrestling show. I set my little phone alarm quietly to wake me up at 1:30 so that I could burn a blunt and put on a pot of coffee. Unfortunately, my wife has not been sleeping well lately.
Oh, no.
So she was wide awake when my alarm went off. And I had to explain to her why I was setting my alarm for 1:30, because I have to watch this wrestling show that starts in Tokyo in a half hour. I was amazed. I thought I would be the only one. And fans that have never seen it before are tweeting, they're watching it live, they're marking out. Wrestlers, MVP, Matt Hardy, guys that are backstage, Carl Anderson, Jim Ross even tweeting during video packages and stuff, Matt Stryker tweeting, people from Global Force retweeting our tweets and favoriting them. It was like this huge movement online, and trending, here it is Wrestle Kingdom 9. The one wrestler that was trending, no surprise here, Shinsuke Nakamura. To new fans, that seems to be the guy that made the biggest impression, and that was the guy that people were tweeting the most about. People were saying that was the best. People were saying that was the best match they've ever seen when it came to an end on Twitter. That was how crazy this place was going. Again, guys like MVP were sharing insight on some of these guys because he spent a lot of time in New Japan. So during matches, he's giving you little fun facts. It was cool, and I look forward to there being another one. From a hype standpoint, from an excitement standpoint, I think you would agree that it seems like it was a success.
I definitely from the online presence, the internet presence, it certainly looked that way. I'm interested to see how far Global Force wants to go with bringing the shows here. I think everything depends on the buy rate number when it comes back.
It's one of those things, though, I do feel pretty confident, as kick-ass as a show as that was, that people are going to buy the replay when they hear about it. Maybe people that didn't give it a chance, they're WWE people like Luigi, and they're like, well, I don't know, I'm not going to go outside of my WWE bubble. But when you hear all the hype and you hear the way that people are gushing about it, it has to make you think, maybe I need to order the replay later this month and just check it out. When I have a bit more money, I'll order it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that word of mouth hopefully will travel. I do know that the Flips app, which can hold well over 2,000 people, the Flips app which they kind of I guess they underestimated how many people would be interested because it was well over 2,000 and they crashed that motherfucker. So
yes, they did.
So that's kind of a good sign and a bad sign. From the flip side, they have offered a full refund, and if you did order the pay-per-view, even if it crashed, it's now on your video on demand. You can watch it anytime. You got it, it's yours. But if you're pissed off and you want a refund, they'll give you a refund. Hopefully nobody's going to do that. Don't be stupid. Just watch the show. But anyway, yeah, from that standpoint, from the excitement online, how many wrestlers were awake? How many journalists were awake? People at 5 a.m. are like, I'm wide awake. I can't wait for the main event. Like, this is after the Nakamura match. That was like a shot of like sheer caffeine, that match.
I have to tell a little side story. Up until probably about the day that we're taping this.
Okay.
I had been, for the last week or so, I'd been battling illness.
Yes.
So, as much as I thought about staying up, I'm like, I'm in no shape to stay up
and I'll be honest with you, I actually had a raging headache that whole night too. Whole night. And I considered, fuck it, I'll tape it like you. But, for whatever reason, I've been following this whole product since the summer anyways. It feels like it's been longer, but I think, definitely like a good 6, 7, 8 months now. It's become this thing that has made me a wrestling fan again. It's made me something that gets excited. I get to relive the little things. The things that some people criticize are the things I love. The things like in the opening montage, which sort of ran down all the matches. That's something you would never see on a pay-per-view anymore. Back in the day, WrestleMania would start. Yeah, it was in Japanese, but there was basically just saying the names versus this guy. So
I want that though.
Yeah, starting a show where it runs down every single match in this little video package and shows the videos of each guy. That's what I miss. Stuff like a lot of people knock the stock music. It's like that 80s stock music that they use.
No, that was fine.
That to me is what wrestling sounds like. I don't want them because WWE is always so behind the times anyway. Like in 5 years they'll do like some weird, I don't know, drum and bass thing, and they'll think that they're on top of everything and the rave culture and everything like that. It's like, you guys are so behind the times. They're like, they'll do a Nickelback song, shit like that. They have no clue. I miss the days of just music, essentially. Like, give me a catchy tune with a guitar lick. I'm good.
Yeah, you don't need to make it all complicated.
You don't need to make it all modern because it's wrestling. And wrestling needs to just have a certain feel, a certain sound, and I thought New Japan has that. And people make fun of some of the music, and I think the music is one of the things that kind of makes it even better. But again, a great show. Go out of your way, pay the money. If you have no way of ordering it, then okay, you can download it or you can do whatever. But if you have any way of ordering it, please do. Put the money in it, because I will tell you, Sean, and as you know, I don't need to tell you, if this thing did well, you're getting more.
That's right.
You don't think Jim Ross and Matt Striker want to do more? Those guys were loving it. They were just gushing on Twitter afterwards. Like, these guys had the time of their lives. Jeff Jarrett had, the work that this guy put in, the amount of sleepless nights that he put in for this thing to happen. So guys like you and me can sit here now and talk about it and mark out. I
never believed in my life I was ever going to say this, but thank you, Jeff Jarrett.
Thank you, Jeff Jarrett. Thank you, Jeff Jarrett. And my God, man, he's a young enough guy. And this is a product that I need to talk to you about this too, quickly. How much time you got left? Are you running out of time now?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, so I'll talk to you for a few more minutes here, because this is something that I'd like to get your take on. As everybody knows, in about a week, I think, New Japan will be running their very first show on American television on Access TV. And it's like they're going to do a 13 episode thing that they've done. They put it together with Morrow and Josh Barnett doing the commentary. And it's going to be a 13 episode thing of the best matches of 2013 and 2014. All the big pay-per-view main events, essentially. And it's going to be like a best of New Japan. And it's going to be running on Access TV on a good time slot, I think. Friday at in the SmackDown spot.
Which is moving, so that's interesting.
Right. So they're going to be going head to head with TNA. That's going to be something.
Okay.
But the real story being that this is a network owned by Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban is a guy that has wanted to get into the wrestling business for a long time. As everybody knows, they saw him on Monday Night Raw that one time. I don't think there's ever been a guest host that was marking out himself and enjoying himself more than Mark Cuban. He's a wrestling guy.
Yes.
And a lot of people have always said it's only a matter of time before he gets the right wrestling product. He just needs to find the right product, and he's going to run with it. So it's one of those things now, kind of interesting with New Japan now being on Access TV. It's a matter of time before Mark Cuban sees this thing, and if this thing draws numbers, my goodness.
Well, that was going to be my next question, is Mark Cuban going to get into work with Global Force as a benefactor, essentially?
Well, I mean, there's that too, but I mean, the interesting thing is that this is not a Global Force deal. The TV has nothing to do with Global Force. The TV is a New Japan thing. I mean, New Japan. This all came together because Jeff had this idea, and New Japan had an idea for a long time, or for the last little while, especially under the new management. They want to get into North America. There's a lot of North American talent on the roster right now, a lot of great North American talent, a lot of English-speaking talent, and a lot of their stuff is in English for whatever reason, and I don't fully understand even just the fact that they're called New Japan Pro Wrestling in English letters.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, clearly, they want to get into North America. They're ready to do it now. And they've just kind of waited. They didn't want to be aggressive about it, and they've waited for some things to fall in their laps. And this is the way it's going. So this is their own deal with Access TV. This is New Japan and Access. So again, is it just a matter of time before Mark Cuban sees this and says, "Holy fuck, I need to do something here"? To me, moving into 2015, maybe not this year, but definitely by next year, New Japan, I think, is well on their way to possibly becoming the number 2 company in this country, in North America, in this continent.
So on this continent.
And yes, the competition may be somewhat low. I mean, Ring of Honor is always going to be Ring of Honor. They seem to have no interest in upping the production on ever going major league. The beauty of New Japan is they look major league. I mean, I would assume you enjoyed and were impressed at least by the presentation, the visual production value of the show.
It was as smooth as anything I've seen.
Yeah, a great set.
Everything was just simple and straightforward and looked like a wrestling show.
Right.
So for me, I'm good with that. That's what you said. This is what wrestling should look like.
Right, but I think the only thing I would add is that it looked like a major league wrestling show.
Yes.
It did not look like Ring of Honor, which, let's face it, looks like any indie, really, for the most part, except for some of the video packages and some of the ad spots. For the most part, it doesn't look good. And I think it will always stay at the level it is, and I like Ring of Honor, and I think you do too, and everyone that probably listens to this does, but we all have to sort of face the facts. It's not going to become some big global product, I don't think, ever.
No, I don't think that's the intention.
TNA, who the fuck knows? Like, it starts their tapings tonight.
Well, here's the interesting question. We talk about TNA, and they've been up in Canada a bit. They at one point had a lot of Canadian talent. As far as I know, they're not available on Canadian television.
That's right. They're not even on Canadian television. And they've never drawn money with pay-per-views.
No.
And I don't think there's any... I would guess that the New Japan pay-per-view, I know that 10,000 is a success for them, folks. 10,000 is... they're happy.
And I think they got well past that.
10,000, and they're doing more. Okay? Possibly as early as April, but definitely for the G1 finals in the summer.
In August.
You will get more. Yeah, exactly. You will get more. But if it doesn't, then you won't. And that's basically the way it goes. But I don't see how they're not going to outdraw pretty much any pay-per-view that TNA ever did at this point.
I don't see how they didn't hit their 10,000.
I don't see how they didn't get their 10,000. The fact that there were 2,000 just trying to get on the app, I would think most people wanted to see this thing if they were going to on their pay-per-view, because this was my first time seeing New Japan in crystal clear.
Yeah, wasn't it nice? It
was a beautiful thing. Everything's been through the Daily Motion and all that shit. So anyways, great shit. Great time to be a wrestling fan, at least for this week, and sort of basking in the glory. Regarding the Rumble. And regarding WWE, and again, another stinker of a show, man. God.
I don't even know whether to talk about the show, or I am so confused. It looks to me like they're changing direction entirely.
Well, they don't seem to ever really find a direction. So.
Well, no. What I mean is with the main event, with the title match.
Right. You're talking about the WrestleMania title match?
No, the Royal Rumble title match.
Right, yeah, the triple threat. Yeah, where are they going with that? That's slightly interesting, anyway.
Because I don't even see everybody. I read all this. Oh, Seth is just going to cash in the briefcase when the match is over. I don't even see that, because if you think about what the end of Raw was with those three guys getting fired anyway, with Rowan and Ryback and Ziggler getting fired, I have this odd feeling that we're not going to get Brock versus Cena.
Yeah.
I have a feeling they're going to do something where Cena comes out and says, I'll give up my title match if these three guys get their job back.
Right.
So then you're left with Seth and Brock. I'm not sure Seth wins unless like Seth barely loses and then cashes in the briefcase and then wins in the second match, because it doesn't look like Brock is staying even until WrestleMania.
And how much does that factor into all of this? It's like something inside of me, okay, just regarding that and sort of even regarding the Rumble and the way that this all may play out. If so, WWE, then yeah, they're going to get my attention a little bit because this may be somewhat interesting. But at the end of the day, if they're going to put both Roman and Bryan into the Rumble, right? And I assume they are, because Bryan's in, and I assume Roman's in.
Roman was in as of December. So
right, so he's in. Yeah, he is in. Sorry. So they're both in. If they're going to go this direction and have Bryan not win, then the only way you're going to be able to do this is to have Roman turn heel. And to me, personally, this guy's not ready to be top babyface, but he might be ready to be top heel.
Yeah.
And in order for that to happen, he's going to have a talker. Who's the talker? Paul Heyman. What's the match that we're talking about for WrestleMania and that we've heard forever is going to be the main event, Roman versus Brock? I think you can still do that with Brock as a baby and Roman as a heel.
How? Because Brock can't talk either.
Everything inside of me says Brock's going to be a babyface before he leaves the company. That's the way I feel. Everybody knows that there's a big babyface run for him. He doesn't need to talk. Come on, do you work for the company? Like, you don't need to have him talk. He doesn't need to talk. He needs to kick ass. So you have him kick ass, and the fans already love the shit. Like, they don't hate Brock Lesnar. They love him more than anyone on the roster. He's the most loved guy in the company. So to have him turn face is just basically going with the current. Like, you're just going with the way that things should be.
And as far as the idea of having Roman win the Rumble or having Bryan win the Rumble, I'm worried you may get a repeat of last year. Bryan doesn't win.
But here's the question, Sean, and I mean, it's not like you're saying anything that's completely out there. You're right, that they may say, no, we're not doing this again, screw you. Do you really want to do that on the night that you're going to coronate the new babyface in Roman Reigns? Do you want the ending of the Rumble to be the crowd shitting on it when it's supposed to be Roman's big coming out party? Not a chance. They're not going to do that again this year. I know they're stupid, but they're not that stupid. And if they are, my God.
No, what I'm saying is the crowds are not as behind Roman as they are behind Bryan, who's not even working.
But that's what I mean. Like, you're saying that they're more behind Bryan than Roman, which is true. But yet we're going to go into the Rumble and Bryan's not going to win. It's still going to be Roman. They're going to shit on it. They're going to shit on the finish.
No, I'm agreeing with you. No,
okay.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
If Bryan is in the Rumble and doesn't win,
okay, I see. Yeah.
There will be uproar.
Right. So you're saying that's not a good idea to do that either.
No.
And from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of divide in the company and a lot of divide even within the guys in the roster right now that are saying, it's Roman's time. It's time for the new guy to step up.
But he's not over.
And then you've got the divide of the other people saying, it's clear. It's clear who it should be. It should be Bryan. They wanted him last year. They want him this year. And his health, how much does that factor into this?
Well, but here's what I'm confused about. And you got to help me out with this. Maybe you've read something that I haven't. How did he get cleared?
God knows, and I certainly hope it's not any kind of shadiness. I really do. I guess he went to see some guy. There was some guy that he eventually had been putting off, and he went to go see him, and it turned out real good. So that's all I can really say. I certainly hope that's true. I certainly hope there's not any kind of CM Punk shit going on here, where he's being forced back or rushed back or booked.
I don't think so.
I certainly hope they're not just calling him one day and saying, so pal, you're in the Rumble.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So fuck, who knows? I'm not super hopeful, but that inside of me as well, I could also see this story play out of Bryan winning the Rumble this year and fighting Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania with Brock still heel and with Paul and all that stuff. Everybody wants to see that match. And then the fact that if Brock's leaving, Vince gets to kind of needle him a little bit by having him lose to a small guy, which to him is probably the biggest insult in the world.
Yeah, that's true too.
Not to Brock, but to Vince.
Yeah.
To Vince, it's like the way to get at somebody would be to have him lose to a small guy. So I could see that, but if you're just going to have Bryan lose and you're going to have Roman win, that's going to turn bad unless you turn Roman heel. There's a way, to me, to really capitalize on this and have somebody get some heat with Bryan not winning.
Well, the other thing is, if you're really not sure about where Brock stands, you always have a pay-per-view in February to change direction.
Yeah, it's one of those things, too, where The Rock had to be top heel before he could be top baby. Yeah. Steve Austin had to be top heel before he could be top baby. And with Roman, I think it's going to be the same thing. I don't think he's ready to be what they want him to be. I think you could wait a year for that. I don't think there's anything wrong with waiting a year for him to get this big moment.
But I also think part of the reason that he was pushed to get them, it was Bryan wasn't supposed to be here yet.
Right. But if you could tell you're right. You could even build a year-long story right now of having both Rollins and Reigns under the tutelage of Paul Heyman, right? Yeah. And then having Brock, I guess, maybe turn baby, and then Roman wins at WrestleMania, beats him. For once, they have a heel go over in the main event, and he's the new champion, and he's with Heyman, and this is going to be for this next year, we're going to build him. The end game by next year, Heyman's going to have turned on him, and Rollins is going to be whatever challenging him. And so the end game for next year is that we got to get Rollins and Reigns to the top. We got to make sure these guys are stars by next year. And by next year, I think if they do a story with Paul, where Paul turns on Roman, that's a way to turn him baby into a top babyface and really get people behind him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just me going off the top of my head, folks. But anyways, WWE, whatever, man. They just seem to be doing what they do. I mean, they're just having bad shows. The whole Facebook, do you have them on Facebook?
I do.
Isn't it funny to see? This is like some Bill Cosby backfiring shit. Like, this is crazy the way that their Facebook has backfired on them lately.
No, I know.
There was the big thing yesterday that people were sharing of, did you enjoy Raw? And there were 11.5K that said no, and 1.6K that said yes. Look at those numbers. I guess until it starts affecting the ratings a little bit more drastically, although they keep dipping down every year, getting a little lower. But, I mean, something drastic I think it's going to take for them to realize, shit, we don't really know what we're doing. We'll see how WrestleMania season turns out. I'm not hopeful, though.
No.
But anyways, again, if WrestleMania wants to compete with Wrestle Kingdom, my God, do they have to have their working shoes on and some good booking. Anyway, Sean, it's been great. We're an hour and 15 minutes deep. It's been a good, fun show. We kind of covered a lot of good things, but there's a lot more to talk about. So we'll get in touch next week.
Yes.
And get back to this. Check us out at WrestlingAudioRevolution.com. I was actually reading all the results right off our page, which is pretty cool to be doing this. So check us out. Before I get out of here, too, one last final story. Guess what I did on New Year's Eve?
No, what did you do on New Year's Eve?
Talk to Conan on Facebook.
Really?
I don't know how this came about. I have had him as a friend for a little while on Facebook. This is the real Conan, everyone. Conan, it's the same thing that's linked with his Twitter, Conan 5150. And for whatever reason, we just started chatting, and he started telling me to check out his podcast, which I've already been checking out. And I told him he's going to be getting on a jogging routine soon, Sean. And he's promised me that he's going to listen to some of our shit, put it on his iPod for some of the runs.
Very cool.
Not the runs that you got there after Christmas dinner, but, jogging.
Jogging, running.
So, yeah, very strange, Conan reaching out to me on New Year's Eve. We ended up chatting there for a couple hours there. But, yeah, really cool. Really cool guy. And doing great on Lucha Underground. So what up, Conan? Happy New Year, brother. We'll talk to you, hopefully, on this show one day. Maybe you have to hear a few of the episodes. Hopefully you like it. Maybe you don't. But either way, you're the man. So, peace, love. Sean Cunningham, glad you enjoyed Wrestle Kingdom on me and Wrestle Audio Revolution. Merry Christmas. Hope you enjoyed your present.
I did, thank you.
Peace, love, and what else we want to say, Sean?
Wrestling Audio Revolution.